The Mandalorian, Episode 4, is the best episode of Xena Warrior Princess I've seen in quite a while. Hello, and welcome to Ignore the Bell. My name is Nathan.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm Luke.
And these guys have not seen, they are too young to know about, but not to have actually watched Xena Warrior Princess. But don't worry, guys, you just saw an episode of Xena Warrior Princess, because that is exactly what that show is. It is basically Xena and her friend, her sidekick, kind of going around ancient Greece, and from one small little community that's having a problem with like a minotaur or whatever else, then they're like, oh, we'll be here for a few days and we'll solve the problem, and then onwards on our journey. And that is exactly it, the tone and everything else. It felt so much like watching a 90s episode of Xena, and I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah, I got similar vibes from it. And just in the sense that, character comes to town, helps out the town for a few days, and then leaves after making the place a better, a better place to be. But yes, we can get into more of that.
The Incredible Hulk from the 70s, the littlest hobo, right?
Yes.
Like all of this, we're going to make, a space Western, and we're really going to invoke all of this iconography of great Westerns out the window. We're not bothered with any of that.
It did kind of remind me of Magnificent Seven. It just, but it was only him. Right. So it reminded me a little bit of that, but yeah. Other than that, it was very much all of those.
I'd like to say I called this pretty much exactly. I think after episode 2, then I said, I don't know, maybe he'll just go to different planets, do different things at each planet, and that's exactly what happened in this episode. I don't want it to be a consistent thing.
I hope not.
Yeah.
All right, let me do the ad read for our sponsor, and then we'll get into the actual content. All right, so our sponsor for today's episode of Ignore the Bell is Blue Krill Restaurant, competing against Red Lobster. Come for the savory krill, stay for the radioactive aftertaste. Blue Krill Restaurant, it is fantastic. You're going to love it. It's got that savory, buttery dip that you get to dip that blue krill into, and Red Lobster's in big trouble with this place because they're not going to be able to compete.
Yeah. And I mean, how can you not love a place that serves soup without spoons, right? Like, it's just...
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Super classy. I've heard that's how they do it in Europe. All right. So we're going to get into episode 4. What is the title of this episode? Do you guys remember?
I believe it is The Sanctuary.
The Sanctuary. All right, folks. I hope you enjoy.
Oh, man. I wish this discussion could go on forever.
Ignore the bell. We're going to keep going, people.
All right. So we are talking about episode 4 of The Mandalorian, which is titled Sanctuary. So this episode was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. I'm sure that a lot of people are very familiar with her acting work. I don't know how much directing she's done. Presumably, she's directed stuff. Nothing comes to mind off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So this ends up making it the second live-action Star Wars anything directed by a woman, because you had episode 3 that was directed by Deborah Chow, and I think that was some of the best Star Wars we've ever seen with episode 3. And then Bryce Dallas Howard, I don't know whether it was her choice or not, but at least for my taste, this kind of tanked a little bit. It's my least favorite episode so far by a lot. But I do want to talk about episode 3 very briefly, because Luke, you weren't able to record with us last week, and I feel like you are a resident Star Wars expert, and episode 3 had to do with, like, there was at least the reference to the purge of the Mandalorian, right? And when that came up in the episode, then I was like, oh, we're not even going to have Luke to explain this to us. I mean, I know that you've already briefly explained it. That does it come up in the Clone Wars animated series? Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah. Well, they definitely talk about the past of the Mandalorians in the Clone Wars and even in Star Wars Rebels. And mostly just about how it was like the fight between the Jedi and the Mandalorians, and then how the Mandalorians lost, and now how they were coming back in the Clone Wars, and sort of still there in Rebels, but definitely not as much. And so yeah, I thought a lot of the episode was really good for just kind of all of the Mandalorian history and stuff like that, because it really went into the, I guess, tribe that he was a part of, because they even got like that saying, "This is the way," which I liked that, and which that big guy was voiced by Jon Favreau, which is his third character who he's voiced as in Star Wars now. That I know of anyway. Um, and so anyway, I really liked that because it was like really showing kind of how this group works. Um, and it's similar to other Mandalorian houses or tribes or whatever they're called, from like the Clone Wars and stuff. But I really like that we were actually gonna get to see that in that episode. And yeah.
So I'm curious because and I mean this does come up in episode 4 as well, but regarding the helmet, I understand that in the animated TV series, then those Mandalorians did take off their helmets fairly often.
Yeah.
So is that just a difference in tribe then?
Well, I think partially, but I have some ideas for that because, well, one of the things is Pre Vizsla was the head of the Death Watch, which was what they called themselves, like the Mandalorians in the Clone Wars, because that's when they were trying to retake the planet Mandalore as like under control of like Mandalorians and how they used to be, which is warriors, not like political peacekeepers and all that. So a lot of it was because the leader Pre Vizsla wanted to take power. So I think that he wanted to have like a face to the people. And also with this, I think it might also be because he's like a foundling, because I'm not sure.
Gotcha.
This is just speculating, but I think that could have something to do with it, because it's kind of like well, we brought you in, so now we don't want you to show who you really are, and we want you to only be known as a Mandalorian.
Right.
Okay.
That's interesting.
All right. It could be that, and that's how they could keep it consistent, or they could just say, we're just like gonna ignore what we established like prior in the animated series,
which would be interesting, especially because Jon Favreau voices the main like Mandalorian character in the Clone Wars. Like, so I'm like, I feel like he would know like a lot of the lore, which is why he's such a good director for this, or writer for this series.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious to see how they explain that, and hopefully they do.
Yeah, I like that idea of it being because he's a foundling.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I hope that they do kind of explain that a bit more. But yeah, just to give you a quick overview, Nathan and I both loved episode 3.
Yeah.
We both of the series so far, and we loved like the stealth action in it. That was really, really great. And off camera, I know you were talking about how it was just like a lot of action sequences.
Which I'm fine.
At least they were good action sequences.
They were good action sequences. You compare the ones from episode 3 to episode 4, and I think you see a really big difference.
Yeah. And like I'm fine with it being an action thing, but like I was just kind of surprised when I saw it, because like the first 2 episodes were so like just a lot more
like, about the lore.
not yeah, definitely didn't have as much action. So then when I saw episode 3, I was like, wow, this is a lot of action just like suddenly all at once, which is totally fine with me for an episode. And the Mandalorians were using jetpacks, which is great because they pretty much never do in live action. So
Right.
Yeah. Nathan and I both love that line at the end.
Yeah.
Of,
It was a good line.
of him being jealous of the answer. I gotta get one of those.
So, did you have anything else to comment on with episode 3?
Just that I guess one of the details that I missed before in the other flashbacks when his suit is being made is how like it's droids who kill like all the people that he's living with. So I thought that was pretty cool how that's like why he hates droids.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. We did that.
And I also this is a very side note, but I'll add it in anyway. But I really liked how Carl Weathers, I don't know his character's name, but he gets shot in the chest, and then he just like has one of those plates though, and it was like, oh my goodness, another Western reference, and like which I loved.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so I thought for a second that they actually killed him, and I was like, well, that was surprising. Like you're just gonna kill him off like that, but then he was alive, and I was like,
at least they didn't do what like Marvel does or whatever, and said that he was dead.
Yeah.
And then 3 episodes later, then we see him again, and then get like a flashback or something to him having survived because of that. That would have been really frustrating. But
yeah,
agreed.
Well, people would have been like, wait, you killed him off. And they would be like, we need to rewrite him into the script of future episodes.
All right, so then can we get into episode 4?
Yep.
Great. At least for me, then you are right. Like there are, like, if you're really stretching, then there's a little bit of, like, there's a couple references to the Western genre, but very, very little. Like he goes in and, he's in that saloon pretty early on. But it's not the tone of a Western at all. Because then he immediately goes out, he fights this, mercenary, this female mercenary who, I don't know what she's got on her gloves, but like she's able to punch his helmet.
Yeah.
It was the stupidest fight.
Yeah.
It was just like, that wouldn't happen in a Western at all. You know what I mean? Yeah. It just, none of this episode, like visually, it doesn't look like one. So it's such a shift from what we've had with the first 3 episodes. And episode 3 is definitely, it's a bit of a departure from what you get with episodes 1 and 2, but now you get something totally different in episode 4, and I think a lot less meaningful.
Yeah, it's it's really strange with the I don't know. I guess I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just her species has like really hardened hands or something. I don't know. But it is just very I was thinking, I was like, wow, she is like able to really do some damage to him somehow.
To something like Beskar steel, it's supposed to be like one of the strongest substances in the galaxy, and she's just
stop a blaster bolt.
And she just boom, and she's not like ow, and he's like, oh wow, that really hurt. Like I'm like, this is so stupid, but like I just felt like the entire episode felt that way, where it's like, we're gonna have this ridiculous montage where within a few seconds we're gonna teach them how to fight with their little spears, and then we can go to war with these monster creatures who live in a neighboring village, and then this ATST suddenly is personified. I'm pretty sure that it's like got emotions and feelings. It's like the sound effects coming out of this. I'm like, this is not consistent at all with anything in the Star Wars like Star Wars canon. Like it doesn't fit.
I didn't see too much of that with the ATST. Like I didn't see too much that was different from how ATST
sound effects.
Yeah, that's true.
It was alive. It was reacting emotionally.
Yeah.
They made it look like it was an animal, where it was like,
Oh yeah.
"Oh, I'm scared
Well,
of the water."
they've always kind of done that kind of stuff with the ATSTs. The way that like the one is like slipping and sliding on the logs in Return of the Jedi, like that's just I don't
Yeah,
know.
but that's the thing, just trying to gain traction. This, even though, of course, there's somebody actually piloting this thing, they personified the ATST so much in this. They made it seem as though it's, the machine itself is thinking, is sentient.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Maybe it's a droid.
I don't know. I just
That's
felt
why
like
the
the whole thing
Mandalorian
was
was
just
so
a
shocked.
silly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it definitely was different. A different take on the ATST and
Yeah.
yeah, just
Even like the red eyes. I didn't get why
Yeah,
it had red eyes.
yeah.
that's what I'm saying. They personified it, the entire
Yeah.
thing. They made it look like it was a sentient creature,
Yeah.
not there's some person and this is like a walking tank.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like
Also,
I get it, there's like some kind of red light in there. It's not like you can see like the back wall, but it's still stupid that they decided to do that.
yeah.
Thank you.
And okay, also one thing that I was confused at the whole time is how does setting up those little wooden barriers stop it from shooting those berries and walking around?
How would it
Like,
stop
Yeah,
it
you
at
have to
all?
you have to
yeah,
make them strong enough. Like what? What do you
I
mean?
know. I was like, it has guns. Like,
How
That's what I'm
long
saying.
were they there? The
yeah.
episode
Well,
makes it seem like they were there for like a day and a half, but like there's
They
no way they
but they
could have
talk
done.
about being there for weeks.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
it doesn't
it's
feel as though there's no sense
right.
of passage of
Yeah.
time within the actual episode.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. This is one episode in particular that I think probably it it could have benefited from being longer, even though I don't want more of this episode, if that makes sense.
Right. That
Yeah.
this was too short to try to do this particular story. But
Yeah.
this story is completely meaningless. Like it's a complete throwaway episode.
Oh
We
yeah, it's
didn't
totally a bottle episode.
like
Yeah.
but it's not. Like I know what you're saying, that it can like, because a bottle episode is, like a bottle ship episode, and for anybody who's unfamiliar with the term, it's a Star Trek reference, and the idea is bottle ship episodes were episodes that take place entirely on the Enterprise, and so they don't go down to a planet. And so this is from the original Star Wars series, and part of the reason why they did that is because they
Okay.
didn't have the budget to go and do location shooting for every single episode, so they had to have some episodes that were really really cheap, where they're just filming on set, at their studio at CBS Studios. And so, but this is like crazy expensive to make
Right.
for such a throwaway episode. That's why I'm saying it's not a
Yeah.
bottle ship episode, because they threw a ton of
Right.
money at a throwaway storyline.
Oh yeah.
Because you
they
could have
built an
just,
entire village for
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
episode.
like, we didn't learn anything about the Mandalorian that we didn't already know from him going after Baby Yoda. We already know, or him with episode 1, helping out that dude, and you know
Yeah.
going after the Jawas, where it's like, oh, he's not a monster, he does care about local communities, and like, but they could have just started this episode, like they could have started episode 4, and they could have said that, oh, well, that planet doesn't work, as he's flying away, and then he's like, we got into trouble there with that ATST, and like, or just had, like, you know what I mean? They could have done like 5 minutes of
Yeah.
that, and then gone into
Absolutely.
whatever episode 5 is, and it would have been perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I guess I would like to ask, and I'm being careful about how I phrase this question, but when do you think you will see the female soldier again?
Probably like
Yeah.
episode 6 or 7. That's my
Yeah.
guess.
It
Especially, yeah,
feels
like
so much like that's what this episode was. It was just
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, remember this character for later.
And
because like even like she says at the very end, until our paths cross again.
Right.
And then they do that like
Yeah.
predator handshake that's not nearly as
They-
cool.
Thank you. Yes, you are right. It was a predator handshake that was not nearly as cool as Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers.
They didn't even have Carl Weathers be the person handshaking. Missed
I
opportunity.
know.
And he even had Predator vision. Like they were referencing Predator, but
You're right. You're
just
right.
missed opportunities.
Yeah, I don't understand. I'm trying to get a handle on what is happening here with the series because I did watch like a couple little clips of some other people's reviews and reactions to the episode, and I saw one of them. I'm trying to remember what channel it was, but I think it was IGN, their review. I only watched the first couple minutes, but they said that it seemed like the first 3 episodes were the first act and of the series, and that it was going to pull us into the big story arc for the season, and that the first 3 kind of are just act 1, and now we're going to get into the big story arc, but not at all. Instead, it turned into a Monster of the Week episodic type of story, and even with the female bounty hunter, I've got to, or not bounty hunter, mercenary, I've got to look up her name. But I'm saying even with that, then it's like an allusion to Xena Warrior Princess. It is this, strong female warrior who goes from one village to another and, I'll help save the day. And that she's going to come back, and they could have introduced this in a different way. I don't, I can't make sense of it.
Yeah.
It is such a strange episode compared to the others. It is, yeah, it does very much feel like it's taking the series in a terrible direction.
That is a great way of putting it.
Because I don't think that there's anything that's well, I shouldn't say that there isn't anything, but I feel like if this episode were part of a different series, it'd be fine. It'd be a decent episode, but it just doesn't fit with what we've seen in the first 3 episodes at all.
Yeah.
Exactly. How is this a continuation of any of the themes, the iconography, the characterization that we've had up until this point in the series, or even the story arc of every bounty hunter in the galaxy is coming after Mando and Baby Yoda, and what on earth does this, proto, New Republic, these, like ex-Imperial Order guys, like ex-Empire guys, pre-New Republic guys, what do they want with Yoda, this Baby Yoda creature? And so it's like, just, okay, we're going to ignore all of that because we're going to do a Monster of the Week episode, and it's going to be these weird dudes attacking some Krill village, and somehow they got their hands on an ATST, and it's like, this is the greatest villain you could ever possibly imagine. But don't worry, within a few seconds, you'll be trained well enough to be able to defeat this thing that we just said was up to here as a villain. I'm just like, oh my goodness. And did anybody watching this, like, were they like going like, oh no, the ATST is going to win? Like, it had nothing to do with the storyline.
Yeah. Yeah. And even like the tone, I would say, even if it is trying to do more of a Magnificent Seven kind of vibe, it felt more like a samurai movie than a Western movie. Because like even the aesthetic, because it goes there and it looks like one of those old like villages that you could see in like a samurai movie. And so I just and then of course, as we've mentioned, like Xena and the Incredible Hulk and all that. So like it was not like, I don't know, it was just like such little Western in it, which is just weird to me. And
because why did they spend several episodes establishing that particular tone to the series and trying to invoke certain genre elements, only to abandon them by episode 4? And And you're right. And I just want to like back up what you're saying, because whether you're looking at the, the thatched huts, well, I guess not thatched, but made out of like very small like bindles of sticks, and like, but like the cone that they have to the top of them, and then their little ponds, they certainly look like what you see with rice paddies in, like as far as rice agriculture. It looks much more like in Asian agrarian village, pre industrial revolution. That's what it looks like. And so that fits with samurai films, like basically like mid 19th century or earlier. But then they've also got that random droid with legs who's helping do some of like the fishing.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yes, I remember that. That was.
Yeah, that like now that you bring all that up, I just think that it's really interesting that this very Asian-inspired aesthetic was not directed by the director.
Chow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Deborah Chow.
Presuming from her last name, I believe that she is of Asian ancestry.
Yeah.
I'm presuming.
Yeah. I'm imagining how it would be so different if she had directed this episode. Like that, the reaction that people would have had.
I wonder, that is true. I think it's probably a good thing that she didn't, because people would have said, they would have attributed it to, her ancestry. And I don't know. I wonder if, I have no idea how Favreau or whoever else is in charge of the show decided who would be directing each episode, because I wonder if Deborah Chow looked at this and they're like, which one do you want, episode 3 or 4? And she's like, not 4.
That'd be my reaction.
I know. Me too. I don't understand how this is written by the same person. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's the really strange thing, because it is like with Monster of the Week episodes, one of the key selling points of them for a studio is that you have different people write different episodes, and it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter what order you broadcast it. That's the great thing.
Yeah. You just, whatever. If somebody has an idea for a story, oh yeah, that sounds good, we'll throw it in as episode 15 or whatever.
Yep.
But it's just so strange with this series.
Yeah, and I mean, they had all of these little teases throughout the episode, and you could tell you're just teasing me. Like when this woman who's flirting with Mando, right? The village woman, and then she's just like, ooh, right? You could tell that she's swooning over him, like, ooh, your
When's
helmet.
The last time you took your helmet off?
Right, exactly. She immediately wants to undress him. Like, she's known him for 3 seconds, and she's asking him to remove his armor for her. And then
which is again this lack of sense of time in this episode.
Yeah.
I just have no idea how long anything is taking. For all we know, it could have been a while that he had been there. Although, I don't know,
when she first mentions it, I think that was the first moment that they meet. When she first mentioned,
she said "Oh, you didn't eat out there, so I brought you some food."
Exactly.
So clearly, it's the first day.
Yeah. But then at the end, then she tries to take it off, because you had mercenary woman who is already like, ooh, if you take it off, then you could just live with this village woman for the rest of your life and be happy here. And he's like, ooh, I could. And then it's like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Oh no, there's an assassin, this bounty hunter assassin. It's the helmet's not going to come off. And as if anybody was like, oh, he's going to take it off and he's going to marry her and he's going to live in the village, and that's going to be the series. From now on.
Yeah.
It's a tease. It's so stupid, because you know that none of this has any consequences. The entire episode is consequence free.
Is there an evil version of... Because that's what that assassin is. He just comes out of nowhere and just is like, yeah, I'm just gonna change things now. Ooh, everything's threatened.
Yeah. And I find that this show does a lot of doing what it did in previous episodes, because of course, the making his suit montage, which I'm fine with. And then now with this one, when the guy is aiming at Yoda or Baby Yoda, and he's like just about to pull the trigger, and then you hear the gunshot, and then it shows him dead. And I'm like, that's the exact same thing you showed in the first episode at the very end when IG-11's about to shoot Baby Yoda. And then you hear the gunshot, and then he falls on the ground. And I'm like, we all know he wasn't gonna actually kill Baby Yoda, because I mean, like, there's no way you'd be like, wow, like look at how big Baby Yoda is in the galaxy, like everyone is like trying to get him, and then all of a sudden like have someone kill him just in like before any of the rest of the season even happens, like
yeah. If it
that's...
were a season finale, then I think that could have been interesting. You know, and then like having to try to rescue it and everything, and we get that in season 2, right? It leaves you with that cliffhanger of, oh no, is the baby gonna make it or not? But yeah, for this episode, like yeah, there's no tension.
No, there's no tension, but there's this there's an intent towards having tension, right? That you can see that's the goal here. And it's just this little tease. It's like, oh, he's gonna, like, this ATST is so dangerous. Are they gonna survive? And it's like, they're gonna survive. And then it's like, this village woman is falling for Mando, and he's kind of falling for her. Is it gonna happen? It's like, it's not gonna happen. And then it's like, oh, is this assassin going to kill Baby Yoda? It's like, no, he's not. None of this means anything. Because if you just skipped this episode entirely and you just go from episode 3 to episode 5, I'm telling you, you could watch episode 3, episode 5, and if this was just extracted from the season, no one would even notice. No one would notice at all. The only thing is, like, maybe if they're introducing this female mercenary character, but they could have introduced her at another point in the series where she's going to join up with him, and it's like, you know, oh, good to see you again. Like, oh, after that time that we were wherever. You just have a few lines of dialogue to establish they already know each other, like what you've had with a bunch of other characters in this.
Yeah, I think that it's I don't know. The main Monster of the Week series that I bring to mind is Reboot, the animated series. There's specifically, I think, 3 or 4 episodes in season 3 where they go to a different system in each episode, and they, you know, help to save the system, and then they move on because they're like trying to find their way back to their own system. But that is the important thing, is that they are trying to find their way back to their own system. We have some long-term goals there, and with this episode, we get no long-term goal. It's literally just like, oh yeah, we're here for just this little bit, and we'll be able to do a little something and then leave, and that's it. And so it leaves it feeling so shallow the entire episode.
Yeah, you don't know what the purpose is, other than Mando kind of says to little Baby Yoda that, oh, we could hang out here for a few months, no one will notice us. And then it's like, oh, okay, there's a fugitive here. We can't stay here. Oh, there's a village that needs help. All right, let's save the village. And then he's like, oh, now I'll just leave Baby Yoda here, and then I'm just done with this thing, and I'm going to go back to being a bounty hunter. That didn't make any sense at all. Because it's like, you're still going to have every bounty hunter in the galaxy coming after you.
So, and coming after Baby Yoda, which, why would he be okay with that?
Yeah, like, that didn't even make any sense. It was such an illogical thing for him to say. So you're like, I don't understand the point of this at all. And can I ask you guys, do you understand how these tracking fobs work? Are they just magic? They work when they want it for the plot, but they don't work otherwise? When it's inconvenient?
Think that it might be like a kind of like sonar. So like the closer you are, the more frequently it beeps. But obviously, if you're light years away, then it won't make a difference. So it's only like if you're like on the planet, like on the same planet, that it would actually start to work. So as to how this assassin knew to check this one planet. I guess he just got lucky. I don't know. That was my assumption.
Okay, yeah. So if they're working kind of like sonar, where it's just like trying to like bounce off of things, and then if it's too far, it won't kind of come back, right?
Yeah.
The quicker it's beeping, the closer you are. And so they were all given this tracking fob to go after Baby Yoda and now to go after Mando. And so they've all got one. Like they've all got two, essentially.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm not sure. I don't know if they actually do have tracking fobs for Mando or if they just have it for Baby Yoda, because like all of them pull out a fob in the cantina or bar or whatever in the previous episode once Mando goes on the lam. They don't get tracking fobs. They already have them and they just start beeping. So to me, then that was the Baby Yoda ones have been reactivated, meaning, oh, this bounty is actually still available. So
Okay,
I don't
could
know
be
if they would actually like keep searching after Mando or not. But yeah, he certainly couldn't go back and be like, yeah, I'm just going to be part of the guild again, because
Yeah.
clearly all of them are going to be like, well, where's the baby? Just we're going to torture you until you tell us. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So this entire episode just seems it's frustrating. It's disappointing. It's disappointing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about a few specific moments. One is after the fight between Mando and the female former rebellion soldier. Was that what she is?
I thought she was called a shock trooper, though, and a shock trooper is
I know.
type of stormtrooper.
Yeah, I got confused by that too.
Yeah, I'm like, was she rebellion?
He said future shock trooper, so it sounds like she was part of the rebellion, and now he thinks that she's acting more like she would side with the Empire, and so it was like a little bit of like a kind of, I guess, trying to be like, oh, I know you because you're gonna actually like you're actually more like this now. But I don't know. It was so subtle that I was like, I don't really get it.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is all I found so far. So her character name is Cara Dune, and it says was a human female who served. Okay, if she's a human female, then how on earth is she punching that dude in the helmet? I don't care what she's wearing for gloves. That doesn't make any sense. And that she's just throwing him around with ease. Okay. Was a human female who served as a shock trooper in the Alliance to restore the Republic. So she was a shock trooper in the Alliance. So in the Rebel Alliance.
The Republic.
That doesn't make Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Okay, is the Alliance to restore the rebellion just the rebellion? Like, I'm assuming so, but like a shock trooper.
It's saying the Alliance, so I'm assuming the Rebel Alliance to restore the Republic.
Right.
The old Republic, not the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what a shock trooper is.
I didn't think that the Rebel Alliance was intending on restoring the Republic, but rather that they were just trying to get rid of the Empire. But all right, whatever.
I'll be back. So I gotta get my cat.
Well, I guess in episode 7, there's the Republic, and then it just gets destroyed like immediately.
Yeah, that's the New Republic.
Yeah. So I don't know. Anyway, like I don't know. It's like confusing.
So yeah, it's very confusing. I don't know why they had to make this whole sequence or her whole backstory.
Yeah.
So confusing with that one line of shock trooper.
Yeah.
Which is a thing.
Yeah. Like.
Well, anyway, after that first confrontation between the two, and at the end of the battle, like it doesn't really seem like either of them like she doesn't know, or like neither of them really knows why they're fighting, right? And then all of a sudden, Baby Yoda is there drinking his soup or whatever,
Yeah.
and then and of course you get the reverse shot there, right? Um, and and then it's just, oh, we're done fighting, and then they're just like friends after that. They're just like,
Yeah.
oh, so tell me your whole backstory now that we
Yeah.
saw Baby Yoda over here. Like, what did that do?
That's
I'm so
that's such a
confused.
great example of what a tease. Like, like, ooh, they're really fighting, and what's gonna end it? And it's like, I don't know, probably something stupid. And then it's just like Baby Yoda just like sipping his tea or his soup, and then you're like, yep, it was something stupid that stopped this meaningless fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my, that was a good one,
Yeah.
Tyler. Thank you for bringing that up because you're right.
Yeah.
That is worth.
Yeah, I just
discussing.
like I really enjoy seeing Baby Yoda. I think that he is adorable, and he is called he, so I think we can presume the gender at this point.
I think so.
But yeah, so he is super cute, and he has so many adorable moments in this episode, and I like this episode just because of those moments. Not really anything else. Um, but but yeah, it's so weird in that sequence. The other moment that I really want to talk about is when Mando goes to eat. He is in the hut, right? He is looking out a window, which is clearly fully open, right? Like it's just a
Yeah.
gap. And then he takes off the helmet while looking directly outside. I'm like,
Yeah.
but everybody can see you.
Yeah.
I know it was the
After
stupidest
the
thing
whole
ever.
discussion of, oh, I don't take my helmet on in front of anybody.
They built
Yeah.
it up so much, and then it's like, good thing nobody can see through this completely open window in broad daylight.
Yeah. Okay, like what was he gonna do if one person just takes a glance over and like just like barely sees
It
his
would have been
face?
the
They're just
Phantom of the
like,
Opera. It would have been, oh.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if they had barely seen his face, then he's no longer allowed to wear his helmet, and he would have
Right.
just been like, oh,
Yeah.
well, now I can never put that back on.
I have to imagine that that was not writing, that was directing, because like there's I don't know. I don't see how Favreau could have written that like after
Through an open
establishing.
window.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like, sure, he can eat by himself in the shack, but just have him be like in a corner or whatever,
Yeah.
just not looking out through a
Yeah.
giant window. If he's looking through some of the little gaps in the shack, that'll be
Exactly.
perfectly
That
fine.
makes sense. You are
I
right,
bet that,
Tyler.
like-
I think you're right. That is probably direction and not like the action description or this in the script.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I bet the script probably just says, then Mando takes off his helmet to eat, and then like they're
Looks
just
out
like,
at
yeah, and looks
kids
out
and Yoda.
at the
Yeah.
kids playing, yeah. And then they're just like, okay, well, him looking out at this, I'm gonna imagine it's a big window in the side of this shack, because like, what else could it be? But, yeah,
So stupid.
yeah,
So stupid. You could have had it like at least there could have at least been a curtain or something that he was looking
Yeah.
through. Just
I feel like
frustrating.
the more they talk about the fact that he never takes off his helmet, the more distracting it's becoming.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
here's the thing: I never once thought about like Darth Vader and whether he takes off his helmet or anything like that. And like now, I'm like, what happens if Mando has to sneeze? Like, I have all of these questions that, like, because they keep like bringing it up, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, now that you mention it, what about this? What about this? What about this?
Yeah.
Like,
How
I
does
honestly,
Darth Vader
Yeah.
eat?
right? That's the thing. But nobody ever asked that question before. We all just
Right.
because it was never he never takes off his helmet. It's well, if he's gonna be in any kind of battle environment, or he's going to be with his inferiors, like he's this commanding officer, then he's going to be wearing his full like uniform with the helmet, and you don't even know it's because he's been so badly injured
Yeah.
that's why he wears it. Like, you don't find out that element to it for a long time.
Yeah.
But nobody asked that question about Darth Vader. Nobody ever said, like, well, how do you eat? Like, how do you think? Like, do you sleep with that thing on? Like, nobody asked that question.
Oh man, Mandalorian, like the Mandalorian would have to sleep with it on, because if someone sees him while he's sleeping, then he can never put it back on.
Right.
Okay, also, so he's definitely going to take his helmet off at some point.
Yeah.
Someone's going to see him.
Yeah.
Do you guys think they're just totally going to abandon the whole I can't put the helmet back on, or do you think he's actually not going to wear it again?
I think one idea that I had while watching this episode was that he wouldn't be able to put it back on until the person who saw his face is dead. And so I thought that actually might be interesting if, whatever village lady took off his helmet and then she
now
died.
I must kill you.
Well, not that he would have to kill her, but like whenever
like
the assassin ends up killing her, and then he's like, well, nobody's seen my face who's still alive.
It's like those people who, like, you see all of these, thrillers where there's some kind of kidnapper and then they're like, oh, now you've seen my face. Now I have to kill you, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, you'll see people and they're like, no, I'm not looking. I don't know what you look like. You can let me go, right? Like, that's what this is becoming.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm a little, like, disappointed with this whole obsession with, he cannot take his helmet off, and let's have lots of conversations about this. It's just more like, why can't he just wear it because it's kind of badass and it's really helpful in fights, where he's got, like, infrared and whatever else that he's using it for. Plus, it obviously protects his head. Like, why can't it just be as simple as that?
Sort of. You could punch it. So.
Yeah, exactly. Let's have a human female who punches.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a blaster to the helmet, no problem. But one fist.
Yeah.
Now I do think that it's this episode that really pushed it over the edge. I didn't have an issue with it in the last episode. Like, I felt like, fine, we can, reiterate that he never takes off his helmet, and that's kind of cool and interesting. But now, like, this episode talked about it like 3 times, like, specifically, and it was really frustrating because it's just like, yeah, fine, whatever, he's gonna take it off eventually, like, I don't care.
Especially because, like, this time when she just asks the question, then he's just like, oh yeah, like, I can't take it off, like, just because this, like, whatever. And, like, meanwhile, in, like, the last episode, or the last time I can remember him being asked about it, they're just like, oh, is it true that you can't take your helmet off? And he just stayed silent. But here he's just like, oh yeah, I can't take off my helmet, and, like, he just, like, goes into a full detail almost about it, and I'm like, okay, well, like, what's the point of that? And, like, you could have just had him stay silent again, and then at the end of the episode she goes to take off the helmet, and then he just grabs it and keeps it on, and the exact same thing is understood from us.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah, I think they're making a much bigger deal out of this than is really interesting to audiences.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And because your question, I think it's a legitimate question based off of what the series is doing of, well, we know that he's going to take it off, and what's going to happen? Is it going to stay off? Is he going to be able to stay a Mandalorian afterwards? Is he going to be able to put it back on? What's going to, like, all of these things. And it's like, I don't think those are particularly interesting questions, but I feel like those are the questions that the series is asking right now. So I think that's where it's going. But I'm like, the much more interesting questions would be, what on earth are they doing with this Yoda creature? Like, is this how the First Order starts up? Because, like, is this critical to the First Order rising up out of the ashes of the Empire? And I'm like, I think you're introducing these elements, and then it's like, but how do you eat with a helmet on? And then I'm like, what? Why are we talking about that?
Yeah.
Just like, you introduce all these super interesting things, and then you're like, but let's talk about this not very interesting thing at all.
Yeah.
I still I kind of want to believe that the Yoda creature somehow becomes Snoke from episode 7 and 8.
Oh, I'm down with that. Oh, I'm so down with that.
Yeah.
What kind of horrible life is
by
he going to
embracing the
have?
dark side, somehow
start
he
looking
becomes
like
totally
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Oh my goodness. And then the line like when Snoke says like I've seen the rise and fall of the Empire or whatever, then it'd be like, well, he did, but he was like a complete baby, but it would still be so funny.
Yeah, it's just like you have some like I don't know, like Palpatine or like some Sith Lord who's, speaking to little baby Yoda and he's like, don't you want to be higher than 2 feet tall? Turn to the dark side and you'll hit a growth spurt. You'll reach 6 feet in height. And it's like,
Yeah.
Maybe I want to. That's what it is. It's all about height.
He just uses the Force to make himself taller.
Yeah.
All of the women in the galaxy, they're just like, don't want no short Yoda.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Done I am with the light side. Yeah, I hope he's Snoke. That'd be great.
It would be hilarious.
Best idea ever, Tyler.
Oh, also
Save the series.
while we've been talking about this, I also have thought of this. I don't know if this is gonna happen, but this is my prediction, and it's probably not gonna happen, but I hope so. I think that there's a possibility Yoda, like Baby Yoda, could be a clone of another Baby Yoda or a different like Yoda, and like they've lost him, and they're trying to get him back, and that's why he's so important. And then they're going to experiment on him, and he's the only Force-sensitive one out of all of them, maybe.
Mm. Yeah, I could see that.
That's interesting. This whole like this ATST attacking some Krill village. Not so interesting. That, however, that you just brought up, that's interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so you're saying you're not interested in radioactive krill?
That was my favorite part.
So strange. It was such a weird thing. It felt so inconsistent, not just with the Star Wars universe, but even within the village. It's like, wait, like, do you guys have technology or not? You've got this like droid thing that's helping to do fishing, but everything else feels like this pre-industrial village where you're using sticks. Like they're not using any technology. They're just using wooden sticks.
Oh my goodness. The one guy during the training montage who's holding the stick backwards.
Yeah.
Like, what?
And
how do you not know that the pointy end goes first?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. And like that's like it's such a silly juvenile episode that we got here of I don't know. I'm trying very hard to not blame any one person in particular. It's very easy and tempting to point to the director and to say this shift in tone, but it's the same writer. So
and that's why I don't understand this. Like, how can Jon Favreau, like the same person, have written all of this? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that I can kind of think is, did Lucasfilm have some say with this one, and they're like, we'll give you some slack for the first however many, but we like basically this is a studio episode and the other ones were writer director episodes.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's kind of more that they were like, wait, you only gave us 7 episodes, we need 8. So write another one that can take place in between a couple of
them. Yeah, see, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As this really inconsequential episode. That would make sense. But it feels very much like the kind of episode that's written by committee and not by somebody who's got a vision for the entire season, who's got a vision for tone and themes and character and the overall story arc. It feels like, okay, just take some of these characters that you've introduced and then just do this little storyline of this little village with these other local villagers who are more violent, who are attacking them to steal their krill. Like, what?
Yeah. It's also the classic problem of, oh, you guys are the first ones that we ran into, so clearly we're going to support you. Like, I don't know. That's so often a thing in these series where it's just like, whatever the first group is that you meet,
Totally.
you automatically are like, yeah, I guess you guys are the good guys then. It's like,
that's right. That's what movies have taught me. The first one you meet is the hero, the one I'm supposed to identify with. So I will be on your side from now on.
That's right. Yeah. Remember that for Making Friends. If you're starting people, if you're starting school, whoever talks to you first, that's your new friend. They're the good one. All the rest are bad people.
That's right.
But it does not feel like we're halfway through this season. Like,
no.
Like, things must be moving extremely fast in the next 4 episodes. Like, because it feels like we know barely anything.
Well,
and
I'm curious. Do you think that like all these episodes have been around the same length, like about 35 to 40 minutes, I think. Do you think that the finale, the season finale, is going to be like a double episode, or do you think that it's still going to be like just the half hour? Because I could see them trying to do like an hour-long one.
I think it's just going to be the same length as all those other ones.
I think it probably will as well, but I think it'd be great if that's what we get. Yeah, because it like this, when you're halfway through the season, you would think that we would really have a sense of what on earth is going on and what the story arc is, but nothing changed from the end of episode 3 to the end of episode 4.
Yeah.
It's just it's still, oh, we're on the run. Every bounty hunter wants to come after you because some strange guys want you for some unknown reason. And your significance is unknown, but it must be significant. Like, that's all that we know.
I think the fact that this is the 4th episode is really what confuses me, because if it had been like the first 2 episodes set up the whole plot, and then the 3rd episode was, isolated on a planet, then it would be like, oh, this is what the series is going to be, just going from planet to planet.
I agree.
And all that. But because we got a full 3 episodes that were all dealing with such an extensive story, this one just feels so awkward.
Yeah, it really does. I think your theory, Tyler, that maybe they had originally written and maybe actually filmed 7 episodes, and then Disney was like, no, 8. And then they're like, all right. And then they added this in. If that's the case, like once we get to the end of this season and we look at it and then we say, well, where does episode 4 fit into the rest of this? Like, because if episode 5 does something similar and then 6 does something similar, then we're going to say, oh, I guess that's just what this show is. But if they just completely, if it entirely returns to the tone and the overall story that we've been getting with the first 3 episodes, if we get that from 5 through 8, then I think that'd be great, obviously.
I'm really curious to see where episode 5 takes us. And I guess I'm also, because I'm pretty sure that the female soldier in this episode, I'm pretty sure that she was shown in like some of the promotional art and stuff, including like the main picture on Disney Plus.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like inside the Mandalorian, it was like her and I think IG-88. I don't remember. I know that there was like a third person, but it was like Mandalorian in center and like 2 different characters on either side. And so I I guess I'm wondering how much of this episode was made in order to create a strong female character for the series, because we haven't really gotten one so far, right?
Yeah.
And I could definitely see. I don't want to put any specific blame on anybody, but I could see Kathleen Kennedy or someone similar being like, well, we need at least one strong female character in the series.
Yeah.
And this was kind of their solution, and they had to spend an entire episode on it because she didn't fit in any other episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can. I'm just trying to look it up right now. So I am on Wikipedia.
Yep.
I'm not. You guys are familiar with this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Cara Dune was a human female who served as a shock trooper in the Alliance to restore the Republic during the Galactic Civil War. A seasoned warrior, she was an intimidating brawler and a crack shot. By 9 ABY, I don't know what 9 ABY means.
That's 9 years after the Battle of Yavin, so basically 9 years after Episode 4.
Okay. So by 9 ABY, Dune had put her days of military discipline behind her to operate as a mercenary. And then as far as her role during the Galactic Civil War, it says, saw most of my action mopping up after Endor, mostly ex-Imperial warlords. They wanted it fast and quiet. They'd send us in on the drop ships. No support, just us. Then when the imps were gone, the politics started. We were peacekeepers, protecting delegates, suppressing riots, not what I signed up for. So she did that. And then, like I say, then becomes a mercenary afterwards.
Yeah. It at least as we've seen so far, her character kind of feels like shoehorned in, and it feels like they were like put in a strong female soldier type in the series. And
well, but I don't. Who was that guy? What was the character's name from episode 1? The dude who can fix anything.
Was that like Nick Nolte's character?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, I don't know the characters.
I'm convinced that this show is like on a mission to not say a single name.
Yeah.
In the entire thing, we have not gotten spoken any character's name.
Yeah, I think it's great. I love this.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
No, I really like
it's hard to like talk about it though. I think it's
I mean, I don't know. Like I appreciate that because to me it's because I find it like Hollywood is filled with complete morons. This is coming from somebody who's trying to get a screenplay, like an option on a screenplay. Like, so I'm just saying it though, that Hollywood is filled with a bunch of morons, and these people who teach screenwriting, they could not be, so many of them are just so incredibly stupid where they teach it as a paint by numbers approach, right? And it is just fill in the blanks, and they're just like, this is what a good screenplay needs to have. You need to have this, you need to have this, you need to have this. And anytime, and I'm like, that's so idiotic. That's not how good writing is done. It's not done with a template. And so then anything that challenges traditional narratives, I appreciate. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm not saying that it has to be incredibly experimental, but it's like, hey, can you do something without having character names? Yeah, I can. Because I'll ask this kind of question in the classroom, and then they'll be like, well, no, you have to have character names. And I'll say, so what was that? Was that an episode of a TV series or not? They'd be like, yeah. I'm like, so you know all those rules about writing? They're made up. They're all invented. And we pretend like they're these perfect artifacts that you find in nature, and then you just go like, oh, this is an established plot device, we must use this. Like, we just created all of these things.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that we don't have character names, because it's kind of in some ways thumbing its nose at traditional storytelling.
I do agree. It's just kind of difficult to talk about the series, because I'm always saying, like,
yeah,
I don't know, like Mando is the closest that we've gotten to a name.
Yeah.
Everybody else, and it's like, that actor who plays the character.
Yeah.
Right. But my point though is that compared to like Nick Nolte as the sidekick, then I'm like, well, she makes much more sense as a sidekick, or even
That's
that
true.
droid thing. What was the
Oh
droid?
yeah, IG-11.
IG-11. It's like IG-11 would have been fine, but a bit limited, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, if she ends up being the sidekick, I still think that she's just kind of like a stock character of strong female warrior, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And just like, oh, just say that she's incredibly strong and that she's got all of this military background. Without really giving us anything else. Just that's all we really know about her. We know nothing else.
Yeah, and I felt that even with the village girl or whatever, because like, not to like, I don't know, get too much into that, but like, she was like the only one who knew how to use a blaster, but like, how? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
if everybody
Good
else
point.
doesn't, then why do you know how to use it? Like, that doesn't really make any
Yeah.
sense.
You would think that we would get more explanation on that.
Yeah, one would
Yeah.
think. And like, boy, like they are all just incompetent with blasters. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't understand. I mean, if you gave somebody a blaster or even any kind of gun, and you're gonna get them to shoot at a bunch of pots that are maybe 10 yards away,
Yeah.
right? Then like, there's no way they would miss as badly as these people miss.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
like it is challenging to be precise when you're shooting, but it's not that hard to shoot. Like,
Okay,
you point at the
especially
thing you want to
yeah.
die.
Yes, it's again like the same thing as like the guy who's holding the stick the wrong way, like where it's just
Yeah.
like you're overdoing it. Like
Yeah.
people are not this incompetent. Like there
Right.
is
Yeah.
How
no
are these people
world.
not dead if like they don't know this? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Like,
Yeah, especially
with
considering
the
like I get like the one village lady who is very apt with a blaster is also able to like hide in the water with the basket over her head. Like
yeah.
that's really brilliant, very
Yeah.
well done. But everybody else in this village is apparently just morons.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
true.
Especially because like with the blasters, like I would get like if it
I
was a
think it's
gun,
again
like if it was just a
direction.
regular gun, I could be like, okay, well maybe they're just like not used to it because like bullet drop or whatever, and maybe
Yeah.
they're further away than we think. But like it's a laser, like it doesn't
Yeah.
go down
Like,
as it's
yeah,
going
maybe
through
the
distance.
kick because they're trying to use a
Yeah.
45, right? And it's like, but it's a blaster.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
kick?
Yeah.
I really feel like I don't want to say that it is the director's fault, but I think that a very skilled
Say it.
director
Say it.
would
Say it.
a very skilled director would have done that better.
Yeah.
Like
Because
every
you just
part of
you
the
make it a
episode.
further different distance, you know, it's just
You're right. You're right. Like a further distance would have made sense. It would have just that would have fixed it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, or even can you guys imagine? Can you possibly imagine the fight sequence that we get between Mando and the mercenary woman at the very beginning? Can you imagine looking at the final version of that and then really studying this, like taking a long time, watching it again and again and again and again for like half a day to really make sure that the editing is just perfect on this? Can you imagine looking at that saying, that looks good? Can you possibly imagine saying that looked good? If like I did it, I'd just be like, it's oh god, we don't have the budget to reshoot, and I just when I release it, I wouldn't be like, we did a good job today.
Right.
I'd be ashamed. I think I would just cut it out of the episode. It looked so
Yeah.
stupid, like the clanging on the helmet. And, oh, and
And again, they had no idea how to end that scene. And Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
Scene ended. Like, what?
yeah, like Bryce Dallas Howard. She's just looking at like the cut and just going, perfect. Yeah, brilliant. Like,
yeah. Just, why not something before you cut to Baby Yoda? But as soon as Baby Yoda appears, like they could have kept going, but Baby Yoda appears,
Yeah.
they just stop.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It really bothers me.
I'm glad it does because it should.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was just a whole lot of not good.
Yeah.
But now that they're back on the ship and, like presumably they're going to be back on the ship at the start of the next episode and I don't know what's next. Find another planet and then solve another problem with an ATST affecting some kind of shrimping village. Like
Maybe they'll upgrade to a bigger tank. Not much of a bigger one because they could barely take the ATST, but
exactly.
Right.
Maybe it'll be a village being terrorized by 2 ATSTs.
Whoa!
I'm imagining I'm picturing I think it's from Family Guy, the scene where they've got the AT-AT or AT-AT, which is totally personified, and that like it like hurts its knee, and then it just like like I'm imagining that being in the next episode.
That's basically what we got with this.
Yeah.
It was like it kind of steps towards the water, and then it's like, ooh, it's cold. No,
Right.
there, and it's muddy. I can't see the bottom. There could be ick down there.
Yeah.
Okay, also, this is very
Why did they
nitpicky,
build
but-
that pit there? Why not closer to the forest?
Right?
Okay.
Right?
Have you guys tried digging underwater? It's hard.
Hard is an understatement.
Yeah, like it's so difficult to dig underwater, and these people build a trench that can bury ATST legs. Like, how
And
did they even get that far down?
Yeah. No idea. And why is it
How
that
is there that much water that's able to fill that?
Right. And I don't understand how the engineers for the Empire who designed these things, where they're like, these things are just, impenetrable beasts unless they fall like 10 feet, and then they immediately detonate. It's like the Ford Pinto of the Empire world. It's just like indestructible unless you gently hit it from behind, and then it'll explode on impact.
Yeah. It's really funny because we see the ones that the Republic had with the clones, like the similar two-legged walkers, and like the clone trooper is totally exposed, which doesn't make sense because then they have no shielding. But at the same time, if the thing were to fall over, the soldier could just jump off.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know where on earth this series is going. I have, and
hopefully nowhere on Earth. That would be a very strange turn.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised though.
I hope we see some, like in episode 5, that we get a return to the tone that you get with episodes 1 and 2, and even getting into episode 3, because even with episode 3 there's still very, very little dialogue.
Yeah.
This one's a lot more dialogue heavy.
We got way too much backstory on Mercenary Lady. She's just, like, I don't need all that dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's confusing at that, because she was a shock trooper for the rebellion, which still doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I am all for all of the amazingly cute shots of Baby Yoda walking around the village and everything.
Right.
That I'm totally cool with, but everything else, I don't need it.
Yeah. I hope, I'm sure that, like, I know that we're gonna return to the interesting storyline. It's a question of when are we going to return to it, because this thing better not become just a monster of the week, different village every week, and it's just the Incredible Hulk, the TV series of all right, well, let me try to fit into this town. Oh no, I guess I'm gonna have to leave all over again. And then it's just like every episode of The Mandalorian is just the sad flying away music.
I actually really want to see that now.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to make an edit of this series. Yes. It says every episode ends with the ship flying up.
Yes, I can't see her. Oh, it would have been great.
yeah, if there had been more in this episode that had tied back to the the greater story arc, that would have been appreciated
Yeah.
at the very least. Yeah, again, like the TV series reboot, it went to different systems for I think 3, maybe 4 episodes, and then it said we're done with this. Like it gave up on that concept so quickly because it was like this is actually not really interesting. Like it's cool to see some other places, but let's get back to the main story already.
Yeah.
And I hope that we don't have to suffer through 3 episodes of this series to get back to the main story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So that's kind of the fear, and hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully this is just a weird outlier in the series.
Yeah.
All right. Can we end it there?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, folks. Well, feel free to comment on any of the stuff that we said and predictions for episode 5 and the rest of this season and what you thought of this one. And, I can't imagine people are going to say that they loved it. But if you did, and if you genuinely loved it, then please say why, please. I'm curious.
Yeah.
And if you enjoyed, like I say, feel free to comment and like and share and subscribe and all of that stuff. Right? Did I cover everything?
Yeah, I think so. Hit the notification bell so that you get notified as soon as the video gets published.
Yeah. Hit the bell to be notified for the podcast. Ignore the bell. Right?
Yes.
All right, folks. We'll see you next time. Bye.
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 Ignore the bell, people. We're gonna keep going. We're still ignoring it. Don't worry. I don't know what that. I think that's the fire drill. All right. We're gonna go home. Yeah. All right. We're done.